Hey everybody, welcome. This is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. Knowing the title, you know what it's about because other people can come up with much cleverer, shorter, concise, perfect titles. Not me. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this as our last one of the school year. So here in the United States, school year tends to run from about August to about May-ish, later June, something. And so this is our last one. So if you are like, oh no, don't worry, you can binge watch all of the ones on the page on the site, which I am sure would make you a better human being. All right, already got that piece done. I'm always intrigued at the punctuationless captions that Google Slides gives you, which is nice, right? Unless you really like punctuation. That being a free way to do captions anyway. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you are having a good May, whether it is the tail end of your school year or something else. I've got with me a buddy who has done a little bit of work sharing some free stuff over time. So Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about Free Tech for Teachers?
freetechforteachers.com. I started it almost 15 years ago, and about 17,000 blog posts later, it's still going, where I review all kinds of cool EdTech tools that you can use in your classroom. And I share a whole lot of videos about how to use them too.
Indeed you do. And I have got a whole bunch of video stuff made by and for teachers and students everywhere at Next Vista for Learning, nextvista.org, videos about academic topics, community stuff, service to others, learning English, careers, et cetera. And it's all free there, and I welcome your giving it a look, see what you think. We have a project going called Improve the World, where we are getting students to tell us their ideas for improving communities. And if you're kind of intrigued, you're like, well, hey, that sounds kind of cool. Yeah, it would be very cool to have your students creating short videos that say, hey, you could do this in your community, and I'm going to get it in front of service clubs around the world. And so if you think that's a cool thing, let me know, and we will talk about it. All right, so how does this work? We're gonna share a bunch of questions, then a bunch of cool stuff, then a bunch of questions, and then we'll finish up. That's how we do it. Richard, start us off. What's our first question today?
All right, first question was, I'm planning to create online English language or special purposes courses in the summer holiday and sell them. Do you have a specific list of tools and apps for interactive video lessons and online course web pages? Well, I don't exactly have a readily available list, but I have done this myself, not for learning English, but for other purposes. And I can tell you a list of resources to use. First of all, to make the videos themselves, you can use Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify. If you want to get a little bit fancier, you might use iMovie or something like that. That's it. That's really not the hard part. The hard part, if you're trying to sell the courses, is to figure out what platform you want to use to create the course. Now, you could use something like Teachable or Kajabi, I guess how it's pronounced. One of those platforms that will do all the heavy lifting for you. If you have a little more technical inclination, you could use a WordPress plugin like LearnDash or Sensei. Or Sensei, I should say, Sensei, S-E-N-S-E-I. I've used both of those, but using a WordPress plugin comes with a whole lot of other things that you have to do. It's not as streamlined as use it, but it's one of those things you get what you pay for. Teachable is expensive, relatively speaking. Using a WordPress plugin is much less expensive, but it's a lot more work on your part on the back end. So yeah.
Truth. So for the mini courses that I have done on reshaping your staff meeting and making your teaching a little bit better, that kind of thing, I've used Kajabi. And that seems pretty cool. I'm actually working with others who are kind of making that happen. So I haven't really gotten into the under the hood on that, but it seems like a good one. I would say though that before you go to a lot of trouble doing that, do you know that the stuff you're going to create has an audience, right? Like apply some design thinking principles to that, just to be like, okay, who wants what and what kind of distinctive elements am I bringing to that, so that you're really thinking, kind of a good marketing strategy on that as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say there are other ways you might go about it. I know Tony Vincent, friend of the program, we've mentioned him before. He does some online courses in the summertime, and he actually just sells the access to the course through a ticketing program. I believe he uses either Eventbrite or something like that. Mm-hmm. And once you sign up, then you get a link to a Google Classroom that he has set up, and just uses Google Classroom. And of course, the people participating have to have a Gmail account to do it, but that's another option to pursue as well.
Cool. What's our next question?
All right. So next question came from Linda, who said, "Thanks so much for your newsletter. I hope you don't," this is directed to me, "I hope you don't mind if I ask about Blogger. I saw that this is what you use to create your newsletter. I've been trying to decide which tool to use to create my own newsletter blog to share with my teachers. Blogger is one of the ones I've considered. I read some reviews that say you don't own your content with Blogger. Is this something you're concerned about? Any insight suggestions?" All right. So first of all, freetechforteachers.com is hosted on Blogger. However, that is not how I send out my newsletter. My weekly newsletter is something I actually write manually in ConvertKit. I use convertkit.com to manage all my newsletters and mailing lists. So my daily newsletter that comes from Free Tech for Teachers, that is just an automated program I use via ConvertKit to take my blog posts and email them out. My weekly newsletter is something I write manually in ConvertKit every week and send out. So there's two different newsletters there. The question about Blogger in terms of the content, you still own your content. People say this all the time, that you still own your content. However, when you read the TOS, Google, which owns Blogger, does reserve the right to use your content for their marketing or promotional purposes. You still own your content. You can download it anytime you want and take it and move it somewhere else if you want to. It's kind of hard to do, but you can do it. So that's that piece about Blogger. All that to say, if I was starting over again, if I was to start freetechforteachers.com from scratch again, I wouldn't do it on Blogger. The reason being, had I known 15 years ago that this would become my job, I would have wanted a lot more features. I would have wanted to be able to run a course through the site itself and not have to set up a completely different site to do it. There's a lot of automation features that you can get in WordPress that you can't get in Blogger. There's just a lot more you can do with WordPress than you could ever do with Blogger. But I think it depends on your purpose. And Rushton, to that end, I'll pass it over to you because I know you have some thoughts about that.
Similar to the last question, it's that thing of like, all right, you want to put together a newsletter, great. Who will read it and why, right? Can you answer that question? That there are certain people out there that that really need something distinctive about what you're putting together, right? When I think of a newsletter, I mean, I've been sending out my newsletter for, I don't know, 12 years, 13 years, whatever it's been. And it's, it's a fair amount of work, right? So you just got to know that, you're not you're not going to a ton of trouble to send it to 3 people, right? So as you think about this, try to expand, your sense of the audience, get people to give you active feedback. What kind of things do they want out of what you think you can give? And if you can come up with some good answers to that and they're excited enough about it to share it, that could be real help for you. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and I would just say, Linda was saying that she's going to share it with her teachers. So I'm assuming just the teachers in her school. In my experience, teachers are like everybody else. We don't want to be added to mailing lists unless we've signed up for it. And so if you just start sending it out to everyone on your school mailing list, they're not going to read it unless they've said, yes, I do want to hear from you every week about this.
He speaks the truth.
So let's move on. Another question.
Good luck in making this next one short here, bud.
Yeah, I'm going to save that one for a little bit later.
Okay.
Let's go to this one from Jennifer. We can do this one relatively quickly before we do our first cool share.
Yep.
I don't know if it came from you or elsewhere. I had the tab open on my iPad for a few months with the new animation program. It was sort of like a free version of Adobe's Animate, but more intuitive and easier to use. All my tabs on my iPad disappeared last night, and I can't find it in my history. Don't remember what it was called. Was it you that initially shared this? If so, can you share it and tell me what it was? So, no, I don't know exactly what you were talking about, Jennifer, but I would talk about some animation tools that are out there. Powtoon is one that's been around for a long time. I love Powtoon. Adobe Creative Cloud Express is great. There's a really cool video on Rushton's website, Next Vista for Learning, that was made with a combination of Chatterpix Kids and iMovie. Love that one. It's called A Healthy Meal. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. Rushton, you got any ideas for?
Well, so I'm gonna sound just given the progression of pieces so far. This too, kind of like finding the right animating tool and doing that, very cool. That's fine. Could be a lot of work, and you really need to ask yourself, what is the educational value of doing it? So as you create like an animation video or something like that, is that video something that carries something that your kids will be able to watch and review in a way that's really useful, things like this. And so, get deep into that question before you start heavily into animation, because animation's cute and can be powerful, but you just kind of have to be in that space of like, am I really finding educational strength in what I'm producing with it?
And that video that I mentioned, I just put a link to in the chat. It's a great video. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my top 3 Next Vista for Learning videos. For those who care, my 3 favorite Next Vista for Learning videos are A Healthy Meal, The Black Death in 90 Seconds, and My Name is Michael. With honorable mention to Captain Communicator.
I would have thought you would have put that one up there. You were a big fan of that one as well.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the physics one. Like this kid in Hawaii, right, is talking about the force and change of momentum equation, and so essentially he stops a car. So I made him like add something to the video that said, "Don't try this at home," before like I'd posted, but it's actually a really good demonstration of that physics concept. Not that standing in front of cars to stop them is a good idea, but
So I put the link in there to the Captain Communicator email too. Captain Communicator, emailing your teacher a Captain Communicator.
And folks will get all of these links in the links page that I send out with this as well. Yeah. Richard, have we gotten to that point where we start sharing cool stuff?
I think we should, because otherwise I'm just going to keep dropping Next Vista links into the chat. There's another one. So this is a cool one that I think I shared last summer at one point, or last fall at one point. It's called Expeditions Pro. It is, and it's free despite the Pro name. So maybe they have plans down the road. And it's an alternative or replacement for Google Expeditions. So initially it was just so that you could view virtual tours and experience them with your phone or your viewer. Sometime over the winter or in the last few months, they added the ability for people to guide others. So if you want to guide your class, you can guide your class through the virtual tour, just like the old Google Expeditions could do. And then just last week, they finally rolled out publicly. It's been available in a private beta for about a year, but now publicly is available the option to create your own virtual tour in Expeditions Pro.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. It's publicly available. It's still a little bit quirky. One of the quirks that I've discovered is you have to hit save a lot. Like hit save every time you add something to it. Otherwise, it's not quite like Google Docs in terms of saving yet. You gotta hit save a lot.
Yeah.
The other piece is that you have to record. You have to bring in your own 360-degree imagery, right? So that means you need to have either an app on your phone or an app on your iPad, or you have a 360 camera of some kind, and you need to save your own 360 imagery and import it. There are some places on the web where you'll find some 360 imagery that's Creative Commons or public domain, but it's still an emerging area for that, because it also takes a lot to host 360 imagery. So you won't find it on Pixabay, for example, yet, because they're much larger files to host than just some static images. So,
and that qualifies as cool in a cool share.
Yeah, that's cool.
The cool little bit to share here is a mini course that's available for free through the end of June. Thank you very much. So it promotes a book I wrote. So, but you don't need to buy the book for the course. And what it is called Little Things Make You Better. And the idea is that there are just little things you can do that you can learn very quickly that can make you a better teacher bit by bit by bit by bit. And you get a little bit better each day. Within a few weeks, you're a lot better as a teacher. So that course is going to be available via the links page. I'll get it in the chat as well. But feel free to give it a look. I hope it's something that you'll be excited about. Let's keep going with the questions.
All right, let's get the questions. Rushton, did you put a link in there? Not yet. You didn't put a link in there yet for that little course, but
not yet. I'm going to do that while you're reading the next question.
All right. Well, there's a link there for My Name Is Mike.
Good man.
All right. So let's talk about this one. An English teacher asked me if there was a way to have specific words within a Google Doc when clicked trigger a drop-down menu of list items. Do you know of a workaround or an extension that would allow such a thing? I was looking around, but to no avail. So there kind of is. You can kind of make this work with the new tables option. So if you go to insert table, there are now tables that they're now table templates in Google Documents, and you can find a drop-down menu option in there. It's designed for project management, however. Now, that said, there is also a new option for drop-down menu, but again, it's designed for project management. So you can say, all right, give me a word. Give me a word. Let's play a word association, Rushton.
Spatula.
Spatula?
It's a word.
I know. I'm just trying to spell it correctly on the first go. So I can create a drop-down template that says spatula, and I can put below it options 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say like flipper, pancake. All right. So that then just do pancake. I'm actually doing it live right now. Pancake and hot dog. I don't know why, but that's what I'm doing. All right. So now when I click on flipper, it will also give the option for pancake or hot dog. So I click flipper, pancake, hot dog, but it's not really like it's a drop-down menu and it doesn't really flow. I think that's what John's looking for. So yeah, it's kind of built for project management, but I guess you could do it for what he's talking about, where it where you click on the word and learn a little bit more about it. But what do you think?
I was wondering how often the words should have this feature to it that John wants, right? So let's say that there's a passage he wants kids to read, and there's just a couple of words that are going to fit in this thing, or maybe his students are putting together a set of drop downs that would apply to particular words. If so, Google Slides, right? So now the collaborative parts are really easy. And what you can do is you can just link any given word to like another slide. And then you could do it that way. That's not as elegant as the drop down that he describes, but it's easy, and easy is a good thing. It also occurred to me that he might have just been wanting something completely different than I was thinking as I read it. And so, for example, if you are in Google stuff, Chrome anyway, and you right click on a word, it'll give you some options, and like to define, for example. And so that'll bring up a set of things that might be interesting for what the students need. So depending on what John's ultimate need is in terms of the learning, there's a couple of approaches that might help, but I don't know that there's going to be an easy one that does exactly what I think he means by the question.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he meant by the question, but because I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of this would be, other than to give students different word choices within a document. And if you wanted to do that, if you just wanted to have different word choices within a document, there's a lot of extensions that'll function as a thesaurus.
Yeah.
You could also just kind of right click and right click and use the explore button or define button, and it'd give you a definition, and then you can scroll down and look for other words that would do the same thing. So
yeah. Cool.
All right, so we might have needed a little bit more information to accurately answer John's question, but we don't have it, so we're going to move on to Isabel's question, who asked, I would like to make an app using Glide apps. It's a cool tool. Using Glide for my students that are taking the GSE German exam. I have two questions. Is the access to this app free for me and my students? And could you suggest a tutorial? Do you know if the app is for Android and or iOS? So Glide apps is a tool that lets you take a Google spreadsheet or an Excel sheet. You can use Excel as well, I believe. And it will take the data that's in the spreadsheet and turn it into a mobile-friendly website. They say you're making an app, but you're really not making an app. You're making a very mobile-friendly website that puts a shortcut on your phone or your iPad. It is great for things like having a big menu of items. For example, if I was trying to create a review app about my U.S. history curriculum, and I wanted to have a section for every decade in the United States history, and then videos within review videos within each section, Glide apps is great for that. If you're looking to make a staff directory that's mobile friendly, Glide apps is good for that. It's not so great for doing like question and answer type of things, right? Because questions and answers require a lot more programming. And while you could do it, you'd also be creating some massive spreadsheets along the way to do that process. So, if you're trying to build a practice app that has lots of questions and answers, Glide apps, yeah, you could do it, but it wouldn't be the best solution. You could do something like the MIT App Inventor. If you truly wanted to make a mobile app for your students, the MIT App Inventor would work. Tinker has a program where you can do that as well. But this is one of those times where you want to consider how much effort do you want to put into this versus the return you and your students are going to get, right? Like if the goal is for your students to prepare for the GSE German exam, I'm going to bet that there are probably, I haven't looked because I never looked, but I'm going to bet that there are some apps out there that are way better than you or I could ever make on our own in the limited time that we have as teachers. And your kids might be paying a buck or two for them, or you might be paying $1 or $2 for them, but I think that's well worth it compared to, the time, the hours and hours and hours you're going to spend trying to make a practice app for your kids. So
Totally agree. And there are a number of kind of good online flashcard tools out there and stuff that you can kind of take a look at some of those. Richard, you might have a favorite among those. But for the tech coaches in the audience, I would say this. This question is a good example of how you need to think as a tech coach, right? So Isabel writes, like, I would like to make an app using Glide for my students that are taking the GSE German exam. I have 2 questions. Is the access to the app free for me and my students? Could you suggest a tutorial? Actually, 3 questions. And do you know if this app is for Android or iOS? Now, she immediately jumps into questions about the app, and she may have very good reason for doing so. But we've gone from the purpose of what the app would do to the nature of the suggested tool in effect too quickly, right? So if someone kind of comes to you and says, hey, I really want to use this tool as a tech coach, sure, why? What is it you're looking to accomplish? If it turns out that Isabel really just needs some flashcards, no need, everything Richard just said, no need to spend a bunch of time learning to program an app, unless there's something really valuable in the distinctive approach that you might take to it. It seems to be a theme in today's episode, Richard.
Yeah, and I would say, if you are trying to incorporate some lessons about programming, and
in the German class,
into the German class,
that's right,
then yeah, spend the time. Glide is great. I used Glide with my 9th grade students the last couple of years as a way to start to introduce them to thinking about if-then statements and thinking about programming, right? Because it's not a programming language, right? It's spreadsheets, and so they can understand spreadsheets, and it's a great way to introduce those if-then statements, and that's the nice way to get them started. And then I transitioned them into learning actual languages, programming languages, I should say, not world languages,
not German.
Yeah, not German. So keep that in mind. All right, but speaking of programming, let's try to make this other question from John a little bit shorter than what it was written. He just watched a video introducing Snap and comparing it to Scratch, a video that was actually on Next Vista for Learning, by the way. I've been trying to transition over to Snap this year because it's more powerful. It is something that kids haven't seen. It's less pretty, and has fewer awesome games to pull kids away from coding and toward playing. All right. Problem is, it has an interface only a computer science major could love, and there are so many things that are easy in Scratch that Snap hides under its clunky interface. It's like trying to learn Italian when you know Spanish. It's very similar, but with enough differences to really make for some misunderstandings. Do you know of any videos, books, or people who can help me bridge this gap in understanding? So that's one question. Let's talk about that question briefly. So I wrote back to John and said, I think that comparing Scratch to Snap is kind of like comparing varieties of apples, right? It's not an apple. Scratch to Snap is not an apples to orange comparison. It's a do you like Granny Smiths or do you like Macintosh apples, right? The food, not Macintosh from the 1980s. Anyway,
I'm a Fuji guy.
Yeah, Fuji apples, right? They both are good for introducing kids to programming logic using a block interface. Both great for that. If you got little kids, middle school kids, Scratch is great. Pick one or the other, right? You don't need to do both, right? what sounds like John is really trying to do as we go through the question a little bit more is transition away from block coding and into students actually writing code themselves from scratch, right? From the ground up, right? In that case, I'm going to move them into one of two tools. And one of those is blackbirdcode.com. Full disclosure, I've done a little bit of work with them over the last year. Blackbirdcode.com was really designed for that transition from block coding. Okay, kids have got Scratch. They understand Scratch, understand the block coding. Let's move on, right? And we're going to start to learn to write code. Okay, Blackbird Code is great for that. There's another tool that you could. There's other tools you could consider. CodePen.io is another one that I've used with my own students. And again, I like this option because kids can see on one page exactly what happens when they change their code. So they can pick a project. In one column, they'll see the CSS. In another column, they'll see the HTML. And in a third column, they'll see what actually happens on the screen when you make these changes. Okay? So that's a cool option as well. But if you're trying to choose between Scratch and Snap, go with the one you like. That's kind of my suggestion there. But I'll also throw in here that I wish if I was in middle school, if I was teaching middle school, I would do everything I can to sign up for a program that Gary Steger is offering this fall. And Gary, for those who don't know, is a master computer science teacher, master of teaching computing to kids. And he's offering an online program where he will teach your middle school students along with you at the same time online. I don't know what it costs. I have no financial interest in this. I just think it would be awesome. If I was in the middle school, I would be doing everything I could to get my class into this, because I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity. So there's that. There's more questions there from John. Do you want to tackle one of those, Rushton?
I do. So
Right.
he goes on in the question to talk about getting kids working on coding things and setting them loose on individual computers, and then how do you kind of manage things and things like this. And one question he asks towards that is, what support do you make so that you don't have to answer the same question 10 times, standing next to 10 different kids and giving them individual steps? Which is an awesome question, by the way. And I would say that, well, first is sort of the ask three, then me kind of rule for teaching, right? Turn to your neighbor, like, which neighbors did you ask before you asked me? And I think that's kind of one way to eliminate a certain kind of headache from this. But also, I would get us back to something we've already touched on a couple of times today, which is screencasting, right? Have kids think through, like, all right, if you get to the end of a lesson, you're like, here are 3 questions that came up quite a bit today. These need to be answered in screencasts, and we'll take the best ones and make them part of the class library or something like that. But again, just to get into the mode of people have answered questions before, you can get those answers without having to, just say come to one teacher all the time, because you never know when the teacher's going to get hit by a Zamboni, and you still need to be able to kind of handle these things. So there you go. So Richard, we're running over on time, but
we are. Let's wrap it up.
Let's do it. All right. So with that, what I'd like to do is let you know that I will correct these slides. So it'll say, here's the May one, because I posted the May newsletter about an hour and a half ago. So I'll get that in there so that when you get to the slides, you'll see the right one. This comes up and you might win a little Starbucks card. And by the way, May, not tons of people enter in May. Math is your friend. Just saying. All right, I've written books. Feel free to give these a look. I'm happy to talk to you about them or anything like that. If the stuff that's in them is stuff that I can help you with, like connect with your leaders or your teaching teams or anything like that, I'm happy to just kind of talk to your team about it. If y'all are doing a book study, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. Speaking of good books and studying good ways to make things happen, Richard.
Yeah, check out the Practical EdTech Handbook. Sign up for my weekly newsletter that I mentioned earlier in the show here, and I'll send you a copy of it for free. It's about 70 pages of my favorite EdTech tools and tips and things like that. And I also have an ebook that I made specifically with tech coaches in mind, or library specialists, media specialists, anybody who's been asked at the last minute, hey, can you do a half-hour workshop after school on something techie? This is for you. This will give you 50 ideas and 50 things you can do for 30 minutes to 60 minutes in an after-school workshop session. So check that out. Go to my YouTube channel if you like. If you like seeing my face, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch me make some screencasts about all kinds of things, including how to make an online course with ConvertKit. One of the things that I did recently.
Good stuff indeed. So our next episode will be sometime this fall. Exactly when? We haven't decided, but we'll figure it out. I hope you have enjoyed this today. I hope you have not been too thrown off by the combination of jet lag and flu that has made my voice a little different, and that you've gotten some ideas that might help you make like a next thing happen with you and the people you work with. We love sharing ideas with you, and you are welcome over the coming months, even though we won't be meeting until the fall. And by the way, those of you south of the equator, I get it, until the spring. Nevertheless, you are welcome to send questions our way. We will get these in the works for future episodes. And as you can tell from what Richard's talked about, we tend to write back and ask some questions and find out what we can find out. I'm going to send a special shout out for a wonderful summer to friend of the webinar, and I should add loyal friend of the webinar, Pat Hensley in South Carolina, who is just this wonderful, wonderful lady who makes amazingly cool gnomes. She knits them, which I think is really kind of amazing and cool.
And perfect attendance
Perfect.
for all our webinars.
All right. Way to go, Pat. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you this fall.